Welcome to the Researching Greatness podcast. This is John with my co-hosts Joe and Brian, here as our follow-up episode to our dive into Nick Chaillan, where in the previous episode we hosted the prior Chief Software Officer of the Air Force and currently the owner and sole developer of Ask Sage, or in Nick's own terms, the founder of Ask Sage. Figure we start this episode with just a couple hot takes from the prior episode. Joe, you want to kick us off with just one quick off-the-cuff comment?
Yeah, sure. I think the thing that we've talked most about here is his transition from French entrepreneur to suddenly government employee. So getting into that, let's talk about how he got there. And his statement was that it was through LinkedIn. I don't know. I find that either hard. Well, I find that interesting, but also a little bit difficult to stomach, given that I hope that we don't get our top officials from LinkedIn. So I guess it's just like a little bit of a indigestion over that. But I don't know. What do y'all think?
Yeah, so just going back a little bit, he started, I guess it was October 2016, if his LinkedIn is correct, as the Chief Architect and Special Advisor for Cybersecurity to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. After coming over 2014, maybe 2015, if memory serves me correctly, to the United States from France. Maybe a little earlier, maybe 2013 he came over.
And also his initial companies, which we didn't get too much into during our discussion, weren't really security related, right? There was some video game stuff. There was some tabletop, like restaurant oriented stuff. But it is there is a little bit of hand waviness that went from entrepreneur tech, which obviously was a part of it, to jumping to DHS, which is pretty interesting. I think we can all agree though that it is interesting that LinkedIn is kind of a big place for networking this day and age. I think of the three of us, probably John uses it to the most benefit, right? And it has been hugely successful for him to be able to get out there and find a message. So it is interesting to hear that somebody might have been discovered for a government position through LinkedIn as well. But it still seems like there might be a little bit of something missing there. Right. Yeah, at least to Joe's comment, right? I would hope
let's level set
right?
here. I'm sure many government positions have been filled through LinkedIn. I guess the question that I have is you don't just go from French entrepreneur to government employee of the U.S. government. There's got to be something there, and maybe we didn't push him hard enough, but
period that maybe was due to time, maybe it was due to Nick not wanting to talk so much about something that happened 10 years ago. But we did lose a little bit in he came over in 2013, 2014, somewhere around there, and then worked for a variety of different companies, maybe here in the United States, and then including still maintaining some roles with that French company that he had brought over here to the US. And I think there was a company called Cyber Revolution that he spent quite a bit of time with that was headquartered, I guess, in DC before he jumped into government. So I would imagine he got some relationships out of being a C-level position with a cyber company. And maybe it's just the Air Force likes to recruit off LinkedIn. So it's one time the Air Force recruited me and made me a job offer. It was off of LinkedIn. I happened to brief a general officer that liked my briefing, but that was like months before they reached out, and then some external recruiter, headhunter for a highly HQE, which is the same role Nick has, a highly qualified industry expert, found me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, you want a job with the Air Force?"
Well, there's got to. I guess. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to defend my statement just one more time, and then I'll let it go. I guess LinkedIn to me seems like a place where lying is pretty easy. And so if you're just relying on LinkedIn and you don't have some internal bona fides that can be backed up by people that you know, I think that's a hard sell to me to jump into the U.S. government at a high level position. Like John, you have a track record of success in many places that are known by the U.S. government to be, well established and well defined companies. That's not a hard sell. I'm just trying to figure out. I just think that there's more to it, right? There's more to. I really increased my LinkedIn presence. That's okay. I understand that's how sometimes that works, but it seems more than that. There's more to the story.
I am 100% in agreement with you there. I wish in our episode we had more time. Maybe in a follow-up episode we can go back and really dive into a little bit more of how Nick got into the federal government. Because he did go from, being a French citizen to having TSSCI security clearance, and sounds like pretty high up, pretty successful roles in government in a very short period of time. So definitely something I would love to sit down, deep dive, better understand with him at a point in the future. And maybe if some of our guests have details there that we don't know about, they can drop those in the comments. And also, while we're talking about comments, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We love subscribers, and we listen to our subscriber inputs and feedback. And I'll pause there. We will come back and talk more about Nick's background here. But Brian, I want to get a quick hot take from you on the episode.
No, I think it was a very intriguing conversation, and it's interesting to hear the trials and tribulations, and especially how you can start off doing one thing and completely end up in somewhere completely else. And it's just interesting to see the journey, right? And I would say the benefits, or a lot of the things that I pulled out from talking to Nick, was just trying to ignore limitations, have that entrepreneurial spirit, don't get yourself like bogged down inside of here's how the system works and I need to work into it. And I think those are like some of the positive takeaways that I could take from his kind of story, is that if you want to make a path, you can make a path. How impactful that path is, and how positive your impact and everything is completely up to you. But if you drive to it, you can find a way.
I would completely agree with you there. I really maybe the term grit is a little too much, but he's definitely shown that if you keep applying yourself and you keep applying yourself, you can be successful and you can get to a pretty great spot in life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Nick's Like, if I were to say his key attribute is grit, I think Ask Sage is exactly that, right? You don't build. I don't know if you all tried it after we got in, but I tried it, and it's extensive. The plugins are extensive. You don't build that kind of thing as a solo developer without having some grit. And I'm sure he might have been a career developer in the past, but he's had high level positions where I'm sure he didn't develop a lot. So he's had breaks in development. So he had to get back into it. I'm sure he used GPT-4 a lot, but still, that's not easy. I code with AI every day. It's not like you can just do it without understanding it. You have to get into it. And so kudos to him on getting that all together as a single developer. It's hard. So grit. Yeah. He's got it.
Yeah. And in the face of a lot of people saying it's impossible, you shouldn't be doing this, you can't do this, why are you doing this? He's really pushing something impressive with Ask Sage. And we'll see about his comments with the current Chief Technology Innovation Officer of the Air Force or Space Force, blocking LLMs across all the Space Force, and if that really is his fault that they're doing that. Because fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know Nick's objectives there. He has become very politicized and very much a hot potato, and one that comes with some damage if you touch him too closely or work with him too closely. And his comments there about maybe he needs to let somebody else run Ask Sage, I know that feeling of having to give up your baby, something that you've spent many a night working on, and suddenly you need to move on. Like, there needs to be something else defining you. and it's a tough spot for him to be in right now. But what I do think, hitting on Brian's points of things he's done extremely well, is getting known. He is out there on social media. He is lighting a fire, good or bad, pointing out even his resignation letter, so-called, I think his HQE role ended, but whether it's a resignation or his role was ending, however you want to look at it, really pointing out some challenges in the Department of Defense right now, and giving some pretty open feedback on ways in which the department needs to improve how they do business with contractors, how they handle software internally. And I thought he hit on some really good points about AI in the Department of Defense and the challenges in the department competing with commercial companies. I don't know if Joe or Brian, you have any thoughts or takeaways on that?
I have so many takeaways. Brian, you go first so I don't take up all the time.
Well, I have a slightly different tack on. Like you're absolutely right. Like there's some really interesting things there, and one of the most interesting things to me, again, looking at this from like, okay, what is greatness? What does success look like? And there's so many different ways to look at it. And no matter how you look at any of the individual things that Nick has done, he has become extremely successful, like you were saying, in building this persona, getting out there, becoming known, and really becoming a catalyst for change. Whether you like how he is a catalyst or how he's been interacting things, he is causing change, right? And that change is bigger than himself. So I think we would all agree, especially having worked in DoD in the government, that anything to get it to move is a good thing, because like it'll ultimately break things loose and get going.
Okay, let's have this argument.
Yeah,
I love this argument because this is something that I encounter so much, and this is one of the things that we brought up with Nick is, can you be a radical change agent but also do it in a way where everybody can like stomach you, right? Where everybody can move forward and not hate you so much that you're
not
ditched.
Everybody's going to be happy, right?
Sure, not everyone's going to be happy, but can you just can you do it in a way that people can still move forward with you? Because we know plenty of people, and we're not going to mention names here, but we know plenty of people where at the end of the run, you can't stomach that person anymore. You can't do anything with them because they're so toxic. They're so toxic that nobody will work with them anymore. I've walked into rooms, mentioned one name, and suddenly everybody's like, never, that guy, like, not going to deal with that guy. And at that point, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to bring him into the conversation? No, you're not going to. I mean, how do you do that?
I think to some extent that's where people go and become solopreneurs, and they build a company that is just them because they don't work well with others. Now, not to say Nick doesn't work well with others, but I see that in those toxic personalities that often they end up working by themselves. And, you know, there's a fine line. You need conflict, I think, to bring innovation and create new opportunities, solve problems, have disagreements in appropriate manners. Now, what's appropriate? Sometimes maybe you do need to have that scorching email and that open letter of resignation. It's a fine line, and I would hate to be left lonely in my old age without anybody around me because I've burned every bridge. But sometimes that's a lesson to be learned. Nick seems to be young. I don't know his exact age. I imagine not too far away from us, that he's got time to learn some of those lessons of don't burn every single bridge you see. And he's on, I think, 8 advisory boards right now. He's been on 15 advisory boards in the last 2 years. There's clearly some people that are impressed by who he is and want to keep him around. And I guess he hasn't burned all of his bridges with his very loud and vocal writings and news appearances.
And I think it's so hard to see from the outside, especially when it's like you've got such a vocal, outgoing statement from like Nick himself, but we're never going to see the other side of that conversation, right? So it's hard to judge. Like, okay, was it too much? Was it too little? Was it needed or was it not? And I think that it is a really hard balancing act, because at the end of the day, we're all humans and we have to interact with each other in some kind of cultural way. And finding those lines are going to be different for every person, every organization, every culture. And it's something that you have to navigate in the moment. And it's really difficult to do. For me personally, like, as long as you're working towards a solution and you're not going against and attacking people directly, then you push as hard as you can, right? Like, you should be able to. I love it when people do push back against the issues and the topics that we're trying to work through, because it means that they're passionate about it and they've thought through it and they have their side. But that means that we can work together to find a better solution through this furnace of discourse, right? But there's a balance there, and whether or not Nick has got through that is a question.
I think that's the interesting spot we are in the world right now, of, to even Nick's point, using LinkedIn to find new jobs, is social media has really driven this. In order to get views and have people notice you, you must either say very extreme things, whether you believe them or not, you just need to say them, or have direct conflict with others, whether that's physical or using your voice. Some sort of conflict has to occur. And right now that generates views and clicks. And in the world of the internet, the more views you have, the more money you make. Mm-hmm. And my business coach says best known beats best product or best service. And in this age, that's absolutely true. People buy what they know. And right now, Nick is getting known through showing up on TV, posting articles, putting very inflammatory comments out there on social media. And, like it or not, it has made him successful or been a key influencer. It's not the only thing. Clearly, he has some technical skill. He's very articulate. We had a great conversation with him. Very impressed by what he's done in his background, though we didn't maybe get quite into the detail I was hoping in the podcast. Hopefully we can do a follow-up and do that. But he's definitely getting known right now.
Yeah, and his ideas are, his ideas are good, and he jumped on Ask Sage. I keep pointing to that, but he has some good ideas, some good pushes. Even Platform One, I think, was it right, that what he pushed for the most. These are good ideas. It's I think the big question is implementation in a way that maintains friendly relations, I suppose, but maybe it doesn't matter in some respects. I will say one thing about John. You said whatever gets the most views. I don't want to talk about this too much because this isn't like a current events show, but like that's why we have people pushing Osama bin Laden's letter to America right now, is because that's what gets the most views on TikTok. And so that shit is taken to the extreme because it works, and then suddenly we have insanity and really offensive things becoming popular. I don't know if you all saw that
line. I've heard it. I haven't looked at it or tracked it. I'm not on TikTok personally. Maybe we can do another episode on CCP propaganda or propaganda wars that are out there, but we'll save that for a future episode. But it's the world we live in. And even before TikTok took off, if the days of Reddit or pick your favorite forum or whatever, as a young kid, I was watching all these crazy videos online, but it was all like crazy, ridiculous, insane stunts or pranks or like gore videos or whatever. Mm-hmm. We all saw them. We all, watch these crazy things, but it's what people tune in to watch and I don't think Nick is, as extreme as any of the stuff you could find online.
No.
In the DoD sector and the giving opinions of federal government, he's giving some pretty extreme opinions in that sector and in the field of technology and government.
Yeah, extreme LinkedIn opinions. That's like, but it's so tame. It's so tame. Yeah, comparatively.
Yeah.
But I find it impressive though. Like he is very articulate in the way he conveys these things, and it's not like he walks up and punches somebody in the face, but he gives a full explanation for his position. He's willing to defend his position, and yet call people by name to the carpet for their misalignment or not delivering for the warfighter and the mission.
No, I would completely agree with you, and to almost pull it back a little bit and just looking at he is extremely articulate in that you can really tell that he's practiced this before, he's talked through it before, and it does make your message come across that much more powerful when you can back it up in that kind of format, right? So again, trying to pick out these little things of like, okay, what makes you successful or what makes greatness inside of business and everything else. Just his ability to have that conversation on the fly in a very professional manner, be very articulate, get it across, just gives you that extra level of credibility without really even diving into what he says. And I think that ties directly into everything else that we've just been talking about of getting the views, getting the clickbait, getting the snips. It's building up that persona around yourself is going to give you that credibility, which makes someone go look for you on LinkedIn and actually send a message. So it is a different, interesting world that we're in, and I think he's playing the game pretty decently well.
Yeah, I think he's really, you look back at his history, starting his first company at 15 or 16 around there, and just sort of going all in on the internet, and he went all in on the Microsoft Surface table, maybe a little too early, and clearly wasn't a success, but he seemed to have gone all in. He built a whole company around it, doing restaurant menus on the table and other interactions with those Surface tables back when, I remember those days when that was going to be like the hot thing, and it unfortunately or fortunately
how
never
you
took
ordered
off.
And it was, I was going to know you when your drink was empty.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool idea at the time.
I can see it. Why would I need that? I don't understand who thought the Microsoft the table. I don't know how somebody thought that was actually going to take off in a serious way. I don't know.
I mean, it's one of those things that you don't know, but it was at the right time that you didn't want to miss out, right?
I guess there were some things that you knew were going to take off, right? Like the iPhone revolutionary. There were some things that were revolutionary.
You need to watch you need to go watch a documentary about the other competing device, BlackBerry, because the guys at BlackBerry were 100% certain the iPhone was going to die and was the worst idea ever.
They were at BlackBerry, but everyone else was looking at this device and being like, "This is amazing."
No, they invented the smartphone, and they were like the brightest minds on the planet in that technology field, and they missed it.
They missed it because they were staring at a BlackBerry the whole time. That's why.
It's 2020.
But I guess my point here
your comment was nobody could miss the iPhone, and I'm like, well, you clearly missed the BlackBerry
guys.
The BlackBerry documentary was really eye-opening.
All right, I'll take it. I'll take it.
BlackBerry's doing fine. They're in computer security now.
Are they really? Is that what they're doing?
I mean, they bought
themselves,
and
they
do all the meme stock a couple years ago, and
Speaking of which, we can cut this out, but I want to know your takes on the humane pin, the AI pin. Have you all seen that?
Oh yeah, I saw it. I didn't really read into it too much. It's this little pin that you can put on your shirt or your jacket, and does nothing. I think we keep this in the episode, but
that is a failure right there. That's going.
I have seen this.
Nowhere. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you can tell that that's going nowhere. It has no utility whatsoever. It's like a better Siri, right? Like, and I'm sure Siri will get better.
Let's mark this that Joe says it's going nowhere.
It's going
nowhere. In 10 years when it's super successful.
Right throwing it in the Discord right now.
I will eat my words.
All right, we'll see. But anyway, so I think Nick just speaks to his background that he's willing to go all in on bleeding edge technologies and take a shot at them.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And
absolutely.
What he did it with. Go ahead, Brian.
No, I was gonna say it's super useful to do that over and over again, right? Because even if that idea doesn't pan out, you have the experience of starting it up, integrating a new technology, pushing that new technology, right? Like the experience you gain along the way is
Oh
super
yeah.
valuable.
No, he jumped right at the right time. What was it, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, something like that. But it was a great Ask Sage wise.
For Ask Sage, yeah. I was about to say no. The Microsoft table was done long time ago.
No, that's gone.
Yeah, no. Ask
But
Sage was definitely the right time.
Yeah, he made the right decision there. All right, I have a lot of AI takes, but I'm not gonna say them unless they're brought up because I know we're not an AI podcast. I swear.
We're technology and government. We're gonna get there.
Yeah. No, I think one of the things that he did bring up was how to use generational AI in this new world, or at least he kind of talked a little bit to it of, if you're not using it now, someone that is using it is going to take your job, right? So I think there is some interesting insights, and I think that's a lot of the reason, why he started Ask Sage was he saw the value of having these kinds of research tools to better enhance your own capability. I don't know, does that get into any of the AI stuff you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think he understands where things are going. I think the big question is, and this is, I do not remember if this happened before or after the podcast, but actually, it must have happened after, right? OpenAI coming out with GPTs, OpenAI coming out with assistants, and basically
that was
destroying.
After.
That was after, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like destroy. Yeah. What Ask Sage
really
is
kind of like throwing their whole, like monetary model up in the air. Like it was huge.
At least shifting it. What I and like why I think why Combinator came out with a thing where like basically people have thrown millions of dollars at these companies that are now worth almost nothing because plugins are worth nothing now. But this is all to say that he has built a wrapper. Now, what I mean by that is he has built a system around. He's built a system around GPT and OpenAI calls. Now he can use internal models, but mostly it's around internal GPT calls, so OpenAI calls. You will always be beholden to the fact that the company who created these models, the company who advances these models, the company who builds the wrapper of all wrappers, ChatGPT, is going to have a leg up on that. That might change with Microsoft abducting potentially most of the workforce of OpenAI. I'm not saying it won't shift, but it's not going to shift to a one-man company that is building wrapper technology. Now, the reason that I could be wrong is because it's government, is because it's for internal government usage that could need localized models.
He did say he has a bunch, which was news to me. There are a bunch of non-government organizations using Ask Sage. Didn't he list off banks and some large Fortune
security aspect,
100
right?
companies?
Yeah, it's because of the security. It's because he touts the security of, and that could change everything. I could be wrong. So I don't know. I guess that's my wavering take.
So real quick, since we're on that topic, and it'd be good to just mark this in history as this podcast gets listened to years from now. OpenAI on Microsoft. What in the world just happened? Biggest takeover in history, like all done under the table?
No, I don't think so. I think Microsoft, well, from the outside, from what I've read, and Joe probably knows better because Joe's job is researching AI at this moment.
Sounds not wrong.
is that OpenAI made a very interesting decision, and this gets back to it's really difficult to tell the politics involved and everything else that is involved. I imagine it was not done lightly. I would hope that it was not done lightly to oust the CEO of an organization like OpenAI, especially one of the co-founders. And then Microsoft just jumped on that chance. Right. I bet you they saw that announcement and someone bright at the top of Microsoft said, "I don't care how much it costs, go get him right now."
Yeah,
I do think that's an interesting hot take, and I wish the Department of Defense could move that fast. But
that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, Microsoft is a massive organization. Imagine the politics and the to be able to go now offer people millions, if not billions of dollars for the whole team to come and just like, yeah, this weekend, over the weekend, we're going to offer 500 employees whatever salaries. It's got to be close to $1 billion, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of comp packages.
So Satya Nadella, I don't know if you all saw this. There was this meme going around with like the former CEO of Microsoft, who I can't remember, but basically
Ballmer.
Ballmer. Yeah, is it Ballmer? Did you say that?
Steve Ballmer. Yeah.
Steve Ballmer. So I think he lost some small percentage. And then Satya Nadella, like you basically see a graph going like this, and then Satya Nadella takes over, and it's just like, it's just like crazy.
It is insane what he has done for the company. He's probably exceeded Bill Gates in the wealth he has brought to the Microsoft brand and the.
That's crazy, and you can see it.
It's
in
unbelievable
their products.
what he's done.
Yeah, it's like use Windows, Windows 7, and then what's Microsoft really known for now? It's really known for its suite of products, like cloud products. Yeah. So now it's just a different company, and I can't say enough good things about that guy. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
What a guy we need to get on researching greatness, because I think we're all in agreement
That'd
here
be cool.
The way he's changed Microsoft is incredible. Right.
Yeah.
Like I just looked up, they're sitting on 143 billion in cash on hand, which
I mean, so they can
let you do those kinds of this crazy hired moves.
Yeah, right? They can hire Sam. Yeah. So the Ilya, I can't remember his last name, nor do I want to pronounce it here, but Ilya, he's on the board of OpenAI, and he's just a larger than life figure, I think there, but he's been doing some weird things, like he burned misaligned AI in effigy. So he like had this wooden statue that was supposed to be misaligned AI, and then at some meeting or something, he burned it in effigy.
Into our conversation, there's a bridge you can go too far when you're trying to create, shock and awe on the internet, right?
Yeah,
it's a fine line, right? You can if you can walk up to that line, and then you can just fall over the edge, and now you're just a crazy person.
I think he drank his own Kool-Aid. I think there were things that he's been saying, like he, I don't know if he said this multiple times, but he said it at least once. He's in an interview when he was with Sam Altman. He said that Ilya said that he would that AI could cure all diseases. And look, I think AI is fantastic. I think that the recent advancements are fantastic. I think that hyperbolic statements like that are not helpful. Like it might help with certain things. Let's advance it. Let's be safe about it, and let's move to the next generation here. But geez,
But you know what it just did? It got you to quote it and talk about it, and that is the age we're living in right now.
Hey,
exactly. This comes.
You don't have to
full circle. Full circle to John's comment
about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Say the craziest thing, and you'll get the notoriety.
Now you still got to cultivate that, own it, shape it, play your cards right, and continue to play those cards. But I mean, that's what social media influencers are doing right now. The big internet personalities and really successful new brands are bringing into the market. All right, so enough on OpenAI. I think that was just a hot take we needed to hit. It's such a relevant topic right now.
Get back on track
there. Let's go back to Nick's background and hit a little bit on his time in government. So where I ran across Nick was actually, I used to throw those flaming fireballs at people in large meetings, and we had some major issues on an Air Force program, and I had happened to run across Nick and actually messaged him on LinkedIn saying, hey, we've got this giant problem with this Air Force program. We need your involvement. And I didn't realize at the time he was going to come in with a grenade and throw a grenade and, completely change the rules of the game. but that's what happened, and it was shock and awe, and it was sort of awesome to see because he went in and completely changed a program that was headed to failure, was not doing the right things with government funding. And what he came in on the extreme side of is thou shalt use Kubernetes and thou shalt only do container development, and all other software development is bad. Or that was sort of the mentality. And so my team at the time was doing this massive scale data analytics product in Hadoop, and Kubernetes was nowhere on our roadmap. And overnight we had to scramble to figure out how to put Kubernetes on the roadmap. And most of the team was fighting that tooth and nail, not wanting anything to do with it. And surprise, surprise, now 2 years later, the big data platform BDP and its many derivatives are heavily invested in Kubernetes and rapidly moving in that direction. We would have never done that without Nick stepping in and really laying down the law of thou shalt use Kubernetes on all Air Force programs. And then when he was in the DoD world, all DoD programs. And he really, that whole DevSecOps conversation, people have to credit him. Like, he pushed that ball heavily from the C-level. I'm sure there was lots of grassroots and earlier projects, but I don't know any one person in government that pushed it harder than Nick did to really equate DevSecOps with Kubernetes-based development and this continuous ATO, secure containers, and then others in the Air Force picked up the mantle and continued to push that ball forward, and it's evolved quite a bit since Nick stepped out. But he threw grenades and threw them hard and really changed the software development paradigm. All those software factories now that everybody talks about, I mean, he was one of the original, I don't know who gets the original credit, but he was sure the voice in the room pushing for that software factory mentality. Platform One, Level Up, some of the other ones that are out there now.
I think that's a really, really good point of, like, what is the role of leadership in it. And I think one is to be that just very opinionated voice, and like, you want that person to be very educated, you want that person to have reasoning, like good solid foundational reasoning to the opinions that they push forward. But you're gonna piss people off, right? That's a situation where you're not going to make anybody happy, or I guess you'll make one camp happy perhaps. But to come in and just have the gumption, have the the drive to be able to, and the confidence to say, this is the way that we're going forward. I'm going to stake my whole career on it, right? Because, like, especially with the you're steering a ship like the Air Force, not to use a ship metaphor for the Air Force, but if you push everybody in that right direction, you're pushing a lot of people, right? And if you made the wrong choice, if he made the Betamax versus the VHS choice, like, could have gone a very different way, right?
Yeah. And the people that also started companies right around the time he was really pushing Kubernetes heavily built some extremely successful companies very quickly. Defense Unicorns, Raft, Omni Federal. There's probably close to a dozen that really jumped on that Kubernetes DevSecOps train that Nick was driving and really took those opportunities because others either weren't sure if that was the right direction or made some stumbles, made some missteps.
I can't remember, was Kubernetes pretty standardized? I mean, I think 2 years ago at least it was in the commercial.
No, there was like, well, I don't know, in the DoD there was like all these wars over the Red Hat version.
Sure.
I need to take a brief pause think everybody, for a second. I'll be right back.
Should we pause the whole thing?
Should I mark a clip?
Yeah,
mark a clip. So should I just stop this completely or just leave it as a clip? Clip it out.
Yeah, we can just clip it out. I can't remember when Kubernetes adoption was. Like in the industry.
Oh, that's a good question. In the industry, it's probably like 2015, maybe?
I think early, right?
Initial release was September 2014, so yeah, probably like 2015, I think, is when I first started hearing about it.
Yeah.
So this would have been like, when was Nick pushing this thing heavily? 2018 timeframe, maybe? And when was he chief software officer of the Air Force? It's before COVID. My pre-COVID stuff is just like so blended together. So he was chief software officer May 2019 to October 2021. And then he was the DevSecOps lead for the DoD from August of 2018 until he went to CSO. So he started pushing probably Kubernetes in like 2018, pushing it hard. So it was still pretty new tech.
Well, I mean, it was 4 years old because Google released it in 2014.
4 years from its initial release, but I don't know how many people even.
Apparently, Amazon adopted it in 2017. Basically, the wave was there, and Nick rightly identified the wave. I mean, I remember in 2000.
But for government, that's normally years behind the commercial sector to get on board that quick.
Yep, I remember in 2000 and I want to say 15 or 16. I'm glad we're not recording this because I'm trying to think of if we were adopting containerization. We weren't adopting Kubernetes, but Docker containerization. I think in 2016, and that was a Navy shop.
What year again? Say that again.
2016, maybe 17.
So you all were really early.
Well, we had one of those people, but he was one of those people that would throw bombs, but be extremely nice about it. See, that's kind of what I don't understand about.
How does OpenShift go back to 2011? Must have rebranded.
No, OpenShift was Red Hat's like Kubernetes platform, Kubernetes type platform. Was it virtualization though, or was it pure
must have started as virtualization and moved into containers? It's the only way it started that early.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I don't know the whole.
Do you remember a testing platform?
Oh, it's Linux containers until it. Yeah, okay, never mind. Sorry, go ahead. A testing platform.
It was called Dart.
Oh yeah, Air Force Dart. Yep.
I think that used OpenShift.
They still, yeah. There's this huge war of vanilla Kubernetes licensed using OpenShift. It's the OpenShift product. I don't know if you ever used it, but it's just complete garbage.
I'm not a huge fan of Red Hat. I don't understand their business
model. What was the Castle Run Pivotal? What did they use? Do you know what was in the Pivotal stack?
Did you hear how much Apple is paying Google for making... I'm sorry, Google is paying Apple for making Safari use Google by default?
No, I heard there was an article about that, but I didn't read it or came across one. What was the number?
They're paying them a third of the revenue from the Google searches, or like 39 or 36%, something like that. Anyway, $18 billion per year.
Dang, it's crazy the revenue off people clicking ads in those searches.
Yeah, and I immediately thought, screw them, I'm going to change my Safari search. And I changed it to DuckDuckGo, and Google's just better. I don't know what to say. It's hard.
I'm with you there. I keep trying other ones, and I'm always just back to Google. Though, I guess it's the Bing search now that uses like AI to, is it Bing? Which one?
Google does it too, but
they're all using it, I guess, now. But
well, not
Bing's is pretty good at like the AI recommendations.
I'm gonna switch it to that.
I don't know, but it's still not like the AI recommendations are good, but they're not like quite what I want out of them.
I mean, sometimes they're dead on, and sometimes they're not. But I'll tell you that first take is nice to have. I mean, it's it's something.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I switched to Bing. See if that works out. All right. Do we want to plan to talk about a couple more things and then?
Yeah.
Okay. What do we want to talk about?
Longer. It's probably great. We can finish up our Kubernetes conversation. I don't know. You have any idea how long Brian's going to be gone?
No. It seemed like he got a call that he needed to jump off.
Yeah. I still want to swing back to the France conversation personally. Oh, there we go. I see Brian. And talk about just the benefits and employee differences between the US and France. Brian gave a good pause there. Figure we shouldn't go on for too long here. We should cut this thing at some point. Everything all right on your end?
Yeah. Sorry. Apparently dog needed to go out really bad. At the same time, Sarah cut her finger with a knife.
Oh no.
Well,
oh no.
So she's like, I'm bleeding. Can you help? I was
God.
Like, oh, God.
Oh, she's okay? How bad was it?
It was not actually that bad, but when you see that in a text, you're just like, fuck.
Right.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
So we're in a conversation on Kubernetes. We'll come back into our conversation on Kubernetes, figure out how to blend it together. But what do we want to wrap up on? I still want to go hit the whole like working in France and moving a company over here part, and the 3
I don't know what
years
else.
of leave.
I don't know what else to hit there. What else did he say about it?
I mean, he didn't. I think that's the main thing. Like he it's a mystery.
And maybe it's a lesson learned for next time we do these episodes to ask people. I don't know. I thought we explicitly asked him.
I mean, we kind of did. It's just like as soon as there was an opportunity to switch to a topic that he was more interested in, he just dove into it.
There was the frustration with the French culture, like
then, once he got into AI, Joe was too excited.
Yeah, I was too
Just gonna
excited.
let it go.
Can't get me onto AI. Thankfully, our next guest has nothing to do with AI, as far as I know.
Well, we got to figure out who our next guest is going to be, because
everyone.
while they've said yes, they'll be on our podcast, I've yet to get an actual date for when they'll be on. Though they did want specific question. Maybe we finish this episode and then talk about that one. But
yeah.
Gotcha, guys.
Yeah, I mean, do we need to wrap up anything with Kubernetes, or are we cool to just cut? I don't remember.
Jump straight into a new topic.
Sure. I mean, because we can just clip.
Yeah,
I don't know. Is there anything you guys want to say about Kubernetes and sort of tech innovation in the DoD?
Yeah, I think the DoD needs more of those types of people who
right, well, why don't we hit? I'll clip this and then you just jump in and start saying right there.
All
right. So ready? Bad marker.
Yeah, I mean, I think the DoD needs more people like that bring external tech into the DoD. I was just doing some lookups. So 2014 was when Kubernetes was released by Google, and so in 2018 he was bringing it into the DoD, and that is actually fairly quick, especially because there was a rollout of Kubernetes with Amazon adopting it eventually, and closer to that 2018 mark. And that's really it's really quite impressive that the Air Force adopted it in that amount of time. And Nick made that happen. I mean, we need people who will push the envelope, and he did it. And I'm sure BDP is better for it, and the Air Force is better for it.
Yeah, a lot of other programs are probably better for it, including fighter jets that can now have software deployed even while they're flying. I believe they're pushing containers through the air now and deploying them onto fighter jets with patches and updates. It's pretty impressive. So I guess in closing out this episode, Nick is now in a contractor role, and we're going to go back to that topic of AI, trying to influence the government and lead the government to do something similar to what he did in Kubernetes, which is wide-scale adopt artificial intelligence. So maybe a little bit of the contractor perspective in trying to push tech innovation to government, and that fine line between pushing the government without poking them in the eye. Brian, you want to kick us off there?
Yeah, it is a really challenging topic. I think having recently had a lot of discussions with a lot of different organizations, they continuously bring up one of their biggest challenges is sharing data across different organizations, different branches, different parts of the government. And when you start to add in things like AIs, especially LLMs, whose entire raison d'etre is to process and make data more accessible, we're still dealing with decades old issues of people just not even willing to give them the data in the first place. So it's one of those things where I think potentially maybe the technology is going to assist in the transition, because there's just so much benefit to using these technologies that it's going to be that forcing function of like, all right, we really need to figure this out because we are falling behind because we don't have these tools capable to us. Hopefully that's something that's going to happen. I don't know. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, data. So if you I've been solutioning a lot around this type of problem. And every time I look back on my service and work in the government, I look back and I think, if I could combine this data source with this data source and this data source and use that and filter, sort, and label, we may have a way to solve this other problem. And that's going to happen over and over again. The government has so much data. So I think you're dead on. And I think, like, if I could pick the next thing that Nick can work to break down the barriers of, I would say it is data sharing, and it's directly related to AI. So AI with a focus on data sharing and using that data to create these not just internal models, but also data pipelines, so that we can feed these models that can enhance our the way that we fight wars and do other things in the government. But that's what I'm focused on.
As the guy that's been fighting these data fights since I guess 2013 is when I got involved in my first data fight, and who used to run the second largest data workload in the entire DoD. A couple IC customers had us beat, but I think we're actually the largest DoD outside of the IC. These data sharing fights have been going on for before I started in 2013. We definitely hit an all new scale. My one lesson learned, and what I've really, I guess, started to push on now, is we've got to just get down to the specifics. So when a general officer gets on stage and says, we need to share data, and then leaves the stage, and it's like, okay, cool. You said the same thing the last 50 people before you for the last 50 years have also said. Like, pre 9/11, we were talking about the need to share data. 9/11 happened. We started sharing data. We still aren't there. But it's really, people have got to start getting into the weeds and start identifying the specific problems we're trying to solve, or these specific issues in sharing data that need to be addressed, whether it's policy, technical, or just government organization, contractor organization not wanting to work with each other, which a lot of them are just, I'll call them politics, but they're really, contractor doesn't want to work with other contractor, government org doesn't want to work with another government org, or gov contractor, I don't want to use BDP because this other company owns it, and how dare that company be successful? Is craziest thing ever.
Grow? To take over their work if they own it,
the wasn't built here mentality, or the wasn't founded by me mentality. But what I would push general officers to start doing is take off the gloves and talk about the specific problems. And what Nick did as a HQE or sort of SES level is he really took off the gloves and started talking specific problems. And to some extent, I think he's doing that in SAGE. He's not saying, like, here's the solution to every single AI problem out there and everybody should use AI, but it's a specific application of AI that he's bringing to the table. It solves a bunch of problems, and it's uber specific, but it's a very specific implementation of AI. And I think contractors, government, others, as we push the ball forward, we must now start talking specifics.
So, John, I want to kind of pose this as a question, but maybe it'll come out as a statement. But I'd like your take on it. So, one of the things that I have encountered recently is specifically with the Army, putting in place systems and networks that demand data sharing, because they demand a certain type of interface or a certain type of data format, what have you. So what do you think about that? And is that happening more and more in ways that are going to change this problem?
Yeah, data syntaxes and standards. I could probably do a couple-hour podcast on that. I've got some great people to be on if we ever want to do an episode there. I helped shape that Army data implementation plan a long time ago. Took way too long to actually get a lot of those data strategies and data implementation plans put in place. I am personally, those standards, they're like a double-edged sword. Like, you've got to have them, and you got to have somebody leading the pack in it, but no standard will ever be perfect. And even the cyber one, which MITRE was pushing, this like Styx taxi, and there was the AIS standard and whatnot. It's just, you have to create user-defined fields, and there's so many commercial solutions that are out there that aren't going to conform to the government mandated schema because they have other commercial clients. And, Splunk's a massive company, for example. They were one that fought the schema for a long time. And, I think the BDPs have settled on the Elastic Common schema because it was more open and dynamic. But these schema wars have been going on for a long, long time. I don't know that there's any right way to slice that cat, but it's building a community of the willing that's willing to converge and work around the standard and make it as flexible as possible while still having some constraints on it. But I don't know, we see that even in stupid things like JSON versus XML. And the person who runs the cross-domain farm says JSON shall never pass a cross-domain solution due to, whatever classified thing that person believes in. And like XML is the only way forward. A lot of that is politics at the end of the day. From a technical perspective,
absolutely.
like bad stuff can go in anything.
Right, and I think that's where bring Nick back into this conversation, especially when you were saying he came in at the Air Force and he mandated this is the way it shall be, and I think that's where his style leadership can really help in a lot of these ways, because the contractors are not incentivized correctly to work well together in these ways, because most of the solution providers are trying to look for ways to create enduring hooks to continue getting contracts going forward. So it is in their best interest to create a proprietary schema or to own a data schema so that you're latched into their platform that much harder. But that's worse for the mission set. And it takes people who are willing to kind of throw grenades and make a decision and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then also be flexible enough and, to bring in kind of, Nick talked a lot about being agile and being able to move very quickly and to be able to make those decisions of, okay, we've made this decision, we're going to go down this route and we're going to reevaluate and change course if we need to. And I think that's, it's easy to say this from here because I'm not providing any actual, all right, here's how you're actually going to do it. But the work needs to be done.
Yeah. Going to that specific question, what I love is the Jeff Bezos mandate on APIs that Amazon put out a while ago. And I think that's sort of that good level of balance between getting too far in the weeds and mandating a specific data schema while also staying broad enough that people can do their thing. And it was really for every application in Amazon. I don't care what technology you use. I don't care what the data schema is, but you shall be able to perform every function using an API. And you have to publish it. You have to make an open document that others know how to use it. It can't be closed and proprietary, but doesn't matter what technology it is. Doesn't matter what format your data comes out in. Thou shalt use APIs. And I think that's finding that right balance across the DoD of, and it's program specific, thing to specific, but that API use case is a really good example of getting to the right level without going too deep.
No, I think that's such a genius thing to do as well, because you're not mandating how the code works. You're mandating how you talk to the code, right? And especially with something like in government, you spend so much time. You've got this sunk cost fallacy of we've spent billions of dollars on this software suite, and now it's so old and mangled, but we have to O&M it. It's like, well, if you just had your APIs as the gateway, I could trash the implementation and I could rewrite it from the ground up, and everything would still be able to talk to it if I just had that intermediate layer, right? So it is kind of genius in that way. But it's hard to get people who didn't grow up with technology or grow up in the technology industry to even think of that as the way you should think about systems, right?
When did that come out, John? Do you remember the date, the year?
Ooh, it's a long time ago.
Because now it's, now it's just common sense, right? Now interfaces and APIs
it's
are
common sense, but people still don't do it.
2002.
2002. Yeah, 2002.
2002.
Yeah, but he was he was creating the future with that, because now it's If you don't do that, you're basically looked on as you locked us into this thing that we now, it's tech debt. It's tech debt at that point. It's all just
but
a
how many defense
bundle of tech debt.
contractors and commercial companies? I mean, it was back when we were doing the BDP thing, and the idea of BDP would be we aggregated every single sensor into a common data lake and then ran advanced analytics on it, every single cyber sensor, to find the advanced persistent threats that you couldn't find in a traditional SIEM tool or in your traditional network security products. And it was amazing how many vendors were like, oh, we don't have a way to send data out of our platform. Or, oh, yeah, even the outside of cybersecurity, the F-35 fighter jet. Oh, the Alice system or whatever is this huge, meltdown has been over with Lockheed Martin. Oh, you can only access it in Lockheed Martin proprietary format, and there is no API to get access to our data. But it's prevalent in the DoD. I'm sure it's prevalent still in a lot of commercial companies. But it's those practices when it comes to data sharing that a simple mandate across the entire DoD of just literally copy and paste Jeff Bezos' letter and say that every single hardware, software system, every single product in the entire DoD must have an open API for their data.
And that's what the chief software officer should do, right? That's the kind of mandate.
Should have mandated that. Yeah. I mean, I guess you can only fight so many fights.
You can only fight so many things.
Yeah.
But that's what that position was.
Put him back. No.
Yeah, that's what. Well, that.
No, let's make these are all suggestions. So he's on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn. I do not have the presence that Nick does, though. Nick is beating me by far.
Yeah.
All right. So we've gone on about an hour here. Let's give some final thoughts here. Any quick takeaways here?
So for me, really, talking to Nick was a pleasure. I think it really does hone in the to bring it back up again, the grit, right? Like his perseverance. He's obviously an intelligent person that's willing to pull up his sleeves and dig in and create a solution and really understand how things are technically working. But he's excited and willing to go after problem sets again and again and again. And I feel like yes, he's created a bit of controversy around some of the actions he's made. He's pushed some buttons, but sometimes you need these catalysts in systems to get it to break free and move forward. So overall, really interesting dude, and I would love to have him back on the podcast again sometime.
Yeah, my takeaway is the last thing that Brian said is that I want to talk to him more and get deeper into how he got into the positions that he got into, and then I'd love an update on Ask Sage at some point. I would love to jump into that with the OpenAI advances and see what he thinks of GPTs. If you don't know what GPTs are, they're an OpenAI creation for ChatGPT. I'm not going to get into it because this is the end of the podcast, but they're a fascinating foray into creating your own chatbot and using your own documents, and eventually, that's going to grow, and there's going to be a platform that that is going to rival Ask Sage, and I want to see how he's going to deal with that. That's going to be a hard thing for Ask Sage as it goes forward. He's got a leg up. He's got some good features. I'd love to get him back on the podcast, maybe in a few months, to just see how things are going there. But yeah, that's it for me. I mean, it was absolutely a pleasure talking to him. He had amazing insight, and keep throwing those bombs is my last takeaway. And I'll turn it over to John.
Yeah, I love it. I wish we'd gotten a little more transparency out of his background. I think he's got quite a bit in his life. It would be amazing to hear. And we heard quite a few snippets that were eye-opening. I learned quite a few things from talking with him there. I love talking to people that have different backgrounds from me and different perspectives on life. Being through a divorce, moving from overseas. I also had kids over COVID, so we got some stuff in common there. Maybe we can talk parenting at some point here. I really want to know how he does it all, how he parents kids, runs a company, and serves on 15 advisory boards, and not all at the same time, but just within the last 2-3 years, been on 15 different at the same time. I'm on 2 advisory boards, and I'm struggling to keep up with them and provide value while working my full-time job. And he's got his own podcast, I believe, too. He's got his own, he's appearing on TV. I really must be working all hours of the day and night, unless it's Ask Sage that's performing all these functions for him, and whether he has a friend that looks just like him that he calls upon to do appearances on his behalf or something. I really don't know how he does it all, or whether his advisory is really just having Ask Sage go answer questions at meetings on his behalf and give life insight out of the Ask Sage platform. But I was super impressed just by how much he's involved in, the number of companies he's supported over the years, and his willingness to take on really tough technology challenges. I mean, going from PHP, I think he said he was one of the early contributors to PHP when he was in his 15s, or when he was like 15 or 16, then going in on the Surface table, going all in on Kubernetes, many other things that I'm sure I'm not hitting on, and now going all in on AI. Like, he's really hit some hot cutting edge tech and given it his all. So yeah, appreciate him on, and look forward to our next guest. So we will call this a wrap. Thank you all for listening, and make sure you hit the subscribe button. Have a great one.